We are ready to go. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Okay, do we have any audience comments tonight?
Nothing in the chat.
Okay, and then consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, Ginger, if you'll call for the vote.
Ms. Baker,
Aye.
Mr. Dunbar,
Aye.
Mr. Girton,
Aye.
Ms. Oden,
Aye.
Ms. Soji.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Right, going into new business, resolutions to transfer between library appropriations. Would you like me to read each of those? Okay, yep, okay. And before we get into that, just to let you know, below where it says 2025 salary resolution, you're gonna go ahead and move that to the end, after compensation consultant proposal. So. Yes, $6,000 from fuel to miscellaneous supplies, 2,500 from communications to waste disposal service, and 2,000 from communications to rent of equipment.
Move to approve.
Second.
The transfer.
Is there any discussion, anything that we need to know? All right, Ginger, if you'll call for the vote when you're ready.
Ms. Baker,
Aye.
Mr. Dunbar,
Aye.
Mr. Girton,
Aye.
Ms. Oden,
Aye.
Ms. Sosby.
Aye. Thank you, the motion passes. All right, we're gonna,
3. Okay, good.
2025 strategic plan.
All right, I'm turning that over to Doug, who led that planning process. And that starts on page 34 of the handwritten numbers, if you have those on.
So really, the thing that you should pay attention to starts on page 37. That is the actual strategic plan. It's the service responses that we came up with, and then the goals and the activities and the objectives following each one of those.
You said
37.
From the state library's point of view, the whole thing is the strategic plan. However, the goal part is the part you'll see again in the future, so probably the part most of it.
And so we need a motion to approve the plan.
Correct. And again, it's a 4-year plan. It has to be anywhere from 3 to 5 years. We did split the difference, did a 4-year.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, Ginger, if you'll call for the vote.
Ms. Baker,
Aye.
Mr. Dunbar,
Aye.
Mr. Girton,
Aye.
Ms. Oden,
Aye.
Ms. Sosby.
Aye.
Just as a reminder on that too, then we send it to the state board and then they approve it as well.
Okay,
Okay.
And then every year, the progress we make, you see that, and that goes off to them too.
great. Thank you for sharing that, Doug and Faith. Okay, next we have director's goals through August 2025.
All right, so if you go to page 45, you'll see my goals, or my proposed goals as it would be. And that little thing at the top, I actually meant to take that out and just talk to you about it, but there it is, still there. So I was really kind of thinking to myself as I worked on them that I was focusing on, you know, how can I influence the people in the organization, you know, knowing that I only have a few years left here, you know, as opposed to accomplishing something that might be more personal, you know. So that was a note, kind of a note to myself. But The first one on there is something that I think would be really good for us if I can pull it off well. It is a big one though, is to develop a whole internal sort of leadership development program that would help our employees either be ready for different different career step or for professional growth. You know, and if we have space, then even for someone who is just curious, like, what is it that why do supervisors do what they do? Or why do, you know, leaders do what they do? And so that involved creating a structure for the program itself, creating curriculum, you know, designing that, making it work, homework, and all of that, and then having a structure for people to apply or be nominated and enroll and do that. So I want to get that off the ground. It's not going to be off the ground in January, but to get it off the ground and to planned out for probably what would be a 12 to 14 month long program. The second one is obvious. We're starting on that tonight. It's the compensation study. And then the third one is what we had talked about at a work session that we had earlier, trying to work, have a few of us be going out and meeting with local groups and individuals to, you know, just kind of build relationships, help them understand the library's value. That's sort of an advocacy goal and a way of building more of a network of people who understand and are willing to advocate for the library. So it's getting that launched. And then the last one has to do internally with trying to change up some of the opportunities that are available for more communication from me with different levels, from Doug with different levels in different kinds of settings. So just sort of an attempt to try some different ways of information going around and back and forth, and chances to answer questions or listen to other people in some different kinds of settings. So those are my proposed goals, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about them.
I think you need to consider separating out create and launch for your leadership development program, because that's to create it and launch it from zero is a lot in 1 year.
Yeah, I have worked
So-
on some background. It's, so I've spent some time thinking and researching, and I have some stuff.
So that's just a
Yeah. and
consideration,
So
because that's good, but
I
both of
don't-
those
yeah,
together
it's
is
a lot.
That's
Yeah,
a
it is a
lot.
lot. I would hate to wait till fall to launch it, but I do understand that could be possible. So any other discussion on that? I mean,
The third one you have, and you, as you described it, you said go out. It reminded me of the open house that we held for the elected officials. And would it be better to bring them in as opposed to go out, to host some sort of a similar?
I think personally, I mean, what I was thinking of, and certainly you can tell me whether you would think this would work. I think there are groups that already meet.
Oh,
And I think getting on their agenda for a certain amount of time
Okay.
is considerably, we are more likely to be able to do that than to get people, I mean,
Sure.
here. Especially because we're really sort of already, if you think of it in terms of banking terms, we're like withdrawing funds by asking them to do some, you know, hear about what we have to say. It's withdrawing more funds if we ask them to come.
So,
to our
okay, I see.
location, as opposed to you know, it seems like it's a smaller withdrawal to me to try to go to where they are, like, so if,
Okay,
but I don't know. I mean, I do think there's value in having people come here, and I do think some of the messaging we developed can be usable
Mhm.
for some of the, you know, as parts of what we could do to go and speak to groups.
sure. And maybe you want to put, like, for the fourth one, you said hold 6 or more conversations. Maybe you want to set, you know, is it
Yes.
4 to 6 for number 3? To use,
Oh.
you have hold a series of meetings, like how
Well-
many, what's your?
A number, yes,
Yeah.
and I didn't honestly know, because I feel like I have 4 goals, 3 of which are pretty difficult
Mhm,
and time consuming.
mhm.
So I wasn't sure how many, and it's.
So 2 to 4, don't, I mean, and that's up to you.
Right,
But a series makes it sound like
worse.
a lot, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so to go back to Stephanie's question, I mean, certainly I could say only create, and then if it
Or
gets
pilot,
launched-
maybe? I mean, if you wanna create and pilot
Well,
part of it, or,
yeah,
however you, I just see
Yeah.
that being a lot.
it is a
with-
lot. And I was imagining that if I didn't get it launched till, like, say, May, that would be okay, that I would have several months, and that then it would go on for, you know, quite a time after that. But I also was thinking it would be sort of, as long as I had kind of an outline, a structure for how the meetings would run, kind of, and some of the major ones planned more thoroughly, or at least outlined more thoroughly, that some of the others I could have topics and then kind of develop them as I went. Now, I don't know how realistic that is, you know, if you're talking a 3-hour meeting plus homework. So you might be smart to say, only do or create, you know, like, to get it all planned out and the curriculum made and all of that
Mhm.
one period, and then to start it, even if I started it in the interim, sort of, I have this sort of no man's land between goals, like where I turn them in September and then I don't show you new ones until
Correct.
December. So if it's going to be a 14-month program, well, it wouldn't be launching it if it started in September. It would be implementing it, right? Could still be a goal. So, is there some way, some general, anyone else with a comment on that? Besides Stephanie and me?
No, I think that she brings up a good point, and maybe it is in how you phrase it, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's create and launch a pilot, or create and schedule a timeline to launch.
Yeah, I feel like I
Mhm.
really, really want to do this as a big commitment from people. So it's a pilot in the sense, but that doesn't make it less work to me, because I'm not seeing like a class as opposed to, you know, a whole, that you're kind of like Leadership Kokomo. When you sign up, you're signed up for the whole thing.
Mhm.
So I really want something that is a structure in the sense like that. So, you know, create and, you know, schedule the launch of is different than getting it launched. It
Yeah.
could be scheduled to start in September, for example, but maybe
Yes.
not have done.
Yeah.
Started,
Yeah.
and if I get to it sooner, then nothing bad happens, right?
Right, right.
I know we're probably gonna discuss this next, but I would like to hear your rationale for needing to go outside to get a consultant for compensation.
It's a standard practice. It's something that it was written in our policy when I came that we did it every 5 years or something. I mean, it was something that was done pretty frequently. Because there are people whose jobs are to do that, and they have access to tools and skills and databases that we don't. the county just hired somebody out of Arizona to do something similar for the county. And other libraries, it's pretty common. So it's something just that it's like using any other outside consultant. It's because they have a specialized skill that we don't. And it's to make sure that our practices and approach is, because we fiddled with it a lot. The last one was like 19 years ago. So, we've done a lot of fiddling around with things since then. So it's it's a pretty common practice to help us make sure we're on the right track about our employees, our jobs,
When we did that years ago, we did not have an HR director. We do now. Is this something that can be done internally?
It isn't by similar sized organizations to the best of my knowledge. I mean, not that we don't on an ongoing basis, but I'm not aware of other places that would never, our size and would never have used an outside consultant. I could try to find that out. If we were to change the timeline by very much, it would affect the 2026 budget, which is what we're trying to work within this timeframe. So that the person would give us information and it would affect our 2026 budget. So I could go and, I could try to survey people and find out if there's someone who never has done it and if they, what their internal situation is and how many people they serve. So, I mean, I don't know if anyone else, who else is familiar with it, but it's an extremely common practice in my experience, but, and one of the proposals that you saw in the proposal packet, they listed the libraries they've worked with. And it included libraries bigger than us, like Monroe County Public Library, which is double-ish our size, so I don't know. I mean, they're using tools, like they have subscriptions, like, I'm trying to think of another industry that would have something common, but they have subscriptions to databases that are specifically about what different levels of people get paid and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, we don't.
Isn't that something that the state organization does?
No.
They don't?
Do you mean the Indiana Library Federation?
Yeah.
No, that's a tiny little organization and it's really just about, it's some training and then advocacy. They have 1.5 employees for the whole state. It's mostly other librarians volunteering. And then the state library is the other state entity and they don't provide any services similar to this. So.
So we were on director's goals and that was information because the compensation and consultant comes later.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Did you want to continue with that or do you want to wait till we get down
I'll
there?
wait till we get there.
Okay, that's fair.
Well, it is.
I don't know that I have anything more to say.
Okay. no.
So if you don't want me to hire a consultant and do that.
Well, it just seems like it's an expensive thing to do, and if we could use the funds for some other purpose, that might be useful, unless we're way out of kilter on our compensation program.
Which we don't know because we don't really have a way to figure that. So, yeah, so it is expensive and that's, if you amortize it over the number of years since we've done it, it's seems less so. But
I don't know that the HR manager would have access to because she's internal, that she would be able to go out across the other organizations and get the information because that's kind of proprietary if you're from an outside looking in sometimes. And then the amount of time that it takes to do the research and compile it all is a lot. So could she do it? Possibly, but to do that type of study, it's almost like a research type of project. When I put it in like educational terms, it's kind of like a thesis where you really need to be involved and focused and be able to plug in all the into all the different systems that have all the data. So I don't know that she could do it with her current responsibilities either.
I would like to say also that it's in the budget for this year. And I brought it up with the board budget committee when we met, that it was an unusual expense and explained why. So I don't remember if it was mentioned.
I know we all approved it, so the group.
I know, but
committee-
when you
yeah.
remember when we came back with, these were the highlights of what we
Mhm.
talked about. I honestly don't know without looking at minutes whether that
That
was
was a highlight.
mentioned, but it's definitely in the line by line budget that was provided and and was discussed with the budget, board budget subcommittee.
Yes, I think the budget committee all felt good moving forward with, yeah.
Because it has been how long since we've done this? Since we've
I
done
believe it
assessment.
was 2006. It was before me. And
That
I
sounds
know the
about right.
policy when I came, Doug might remember this more accurately, but I believe it used to say we did it every 5 years. And because we didn't really feel like we had the money, we changed it to as needed or something like that. But we have a policy, like the hiring and compensation policy or something that refers to doing having a compensation study done by an outside firm. So if it's a surprise, I'm sorry about that.
Anyone have anything else they want to share about Faith's director's goals?
I made 2 adjustments as
great.
suggested. That for the first one says create and schedule a launch of an internal leadership development program.
Okay.
And then the third one says hold 2 to 4 meetings rather than a series of.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing those. Excited to see all that. Next, we have updates to director's job description.
I brought this because we were asking everybody in the organization to look at their job descriptions because they will be sent to the compensation consultant should we choose to do that study. And there were things that I thought, having done the job, could perhaps be described better than they were in the job description. And the only changes I made were on page 46. So it's just a few minor, I suggested some changes to the overview at the top, and then some other ways that I engage with the community. Like I feel as if that is, there's a lot of in-person and virtual interaction other than presenting programs. Or talking to the media. It felt a little dated to me, I guess, I would say. And then that I think just being a lot of networking happens just because you go to things. I mean, I end up having conversations or having chances to partner because, I mean, not every single time, but going out and going to things where other people are is just really helpful. So I suggested adding that in.
That'll be an action for us. We have a motion to approve those changes, or do we want to talk about them first?
Motion to approve the changes to the job description.
Second.
Any more, any discussion? Please vote. Okay, Ginger, if you'll call for the vote.
Ms. Baker,
Aye.
Mr. Dunbar, Mr. Girton,
Aye.
Ms. Oden,
Aye.
Ms. Sosby.
Aye. Thank you. Right, electronic device and internet acceptable use policy.
All right, that starts on page 50. And this, these edits have to do with the fact that we are our app provider. And by that, I mean our library app. So not Libby or Hoopla, but the actual library app with the catalog and that kind of thing. The third party that provides that is going, they've updated their app. And they are requiring a privacy policy that is adequate for the Google Play Store and the Apple Store. And ours didn't include everything they needed. So this additional information has to do with that. And then there are some changes that have to do with the way things, just some updates to how things actually work, or some clarifications as well. But the big, long privacy chunk is most of it.
Okay.
Do you have any questions about that? I'm not sure if Aaron Smith is on as Kokomo-Howard County Public Library, but he often is, so.
I am here, Faith, if anyone has questions.
Thank you, Aaron.
I make a motion to approve.
A second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, Ginger, if you'll call for the vote.
Ms. Baker,
Aye.
Mr. Dunbar, Mr. Girton,
Aye.
Ms. Oden,
Aye.
Ms. Sosby.
Aye. Thank you. Compensation consultant proposal.
All right, so Christy is here, and Christy and I worked on this jointly. I think everybody knows Christy. And so you have each of the full proposals, were sent to you. If you read them all, you get a gold star, if you read every page of every proposal. And then there's just a summary sheet that helps you understand what we did, and what our recommendation is and why it is the way it is. So, so we had an assessment rubric that shows kind of what we thought mattered in terms of a firm and a proposal, and then how that is weighted. And then a little narrative summary of the background and a narrative of the firms. And so if we had all the money in the world, we would hire Mr. Richardson. He definitely had, parts that he proposed that nobody else included, multiple things. And he also really listened and responded in our meeting. And has a really fascinating work background and is, as far as we can tell, an independent person running his own firm, like one person or a very, very small firm. I'm sure to some extent that pushes up his prices because he's not assigning some of that work to a lower paid person, probably very much, but he also proposed things that other people didn't include. or doing them in a more thorough way. However, given the reality of money, we felt that NFP was a good firm in term, adequately responsive, had obviously very experienced with this kind of work and very able to listen and suggest, oh, well, these are some things we could do about that. They would not be doing an enormous amount of work about the work week. They could give us some basic information, but not extensive help if we were to go to a unified definition of a full-time work week rather than the 36 and 40 that we have currently. They can look at trends in terms of work week lengths and that kind of thing. Christy, did I leave out anything? Anything major you want to add?
No, I just think it was really obvious who our top two and bottom two were. I mean, I was really impressed by two and not at all impressed by the other two. So it really just did fall down to NFP. I think is going to be the better value for the library's money. I think they're offering what we need in the right price frame of what was budgeted. Although, like she said, Richardson was great.
Right.
Again, we just are the type of company that could really, we could benefit from the services, but not really afford. And even if we went with the most basic, it would still well above what I think the best use of money would be. And
NFP.
I got the feeling that even for the work week, if they gave us some basic data, I think it would be enough for us to run with, to where I could use resources that I have available to come up with that go on that. So I think that it still covers enough of our bases to warrant their us choosing them.
So the top choice is NFP, right?
Yes, our recommendation is NFP for $34,500. We had budgeted $40,000 for this.
What would be the gap that you would have from what you mentioned they didn't quite do everything. What would be the gap?
It's mostly the work week piece of it,
Okay.
because we have had so many staff mention they would prefer that I think that was one piece that Richardson really latched onto and was like, hey, I can give you some guidance here. And NFP was more of like, hey, we can give you big picture information. And then it was kind of presented like, then we will present it to you to do with as you see fit.
Right.
Where
Mhm.
Richardson would come in and say, hey, we would basically provide you with the whole package.
Well, and he has an HR background and I think would have been comfortable doing more with that. He also suggested a couple of other pieces that were more extensive and one of which others didn't do at all. And that had to do, and I would have reviewed my notes from the interview if I'd thought about it ahead
Yeah,
here,
it
but
was having to do with actually putting together like a full compensation policy that could be rolled forward into coming years. That is something that would be a lot more robust than what we currently have.
it was more like a compensation strategy.
Yeah. that's
Not a
probably-
policy like we think of, but
Right,
it
but
was.
more of like something to like, hey, here's something that you can use for, and he said like, I would continue to consult with you for up to a year. So he had like timelines in there, like that was the piece that he offered that no one else did. That was.
Yeah,
that
and-
was definitely perked our ears, but again, just that 3 times the price is
Yeah.
just a lot.
Even trying to figure out like how accurate how do our positions relate to each other? Like he asked very extensive questions and had a whole piece where he would look at whether should we have series jobs like clerk 1, clerk 2, clerk 3? Should we have I mean, he was much more in-depth about the positions and how they relate to each other and what do you do about someone who does a high-level job, but they only do it once every 2 months, like someone at the Rougeaville branch? You know, should they be a clerk?
Or should they be a higher?
Or should they be a higher level?
Because
Because once in a while they do higher things, like he had much more extensive,
His
plans
questions
to
were very
look at-
thorough.
yes,
Like,
I mean.
actually, I was writing notes about the questions that he asked, because you could just tell that he had just such extensive knowledge in this.
And it's going to be more. It's going to be, the way NFP will do it will be more boilerplate to an extent. I mean, it's not customized for us a lot. I mean, you know, there are things they offer that are helpful. And they certainly listened to what we said and said, oh, you know, of the things we could do, that's a good point. We care about that. These are the things we could do to help you, but it's not, the package is not designed for us in the same way. It's more, this is what we offer. But it is we felt they were far better than the other 2 firms that we talked to, even though the approaches overlap a fair amount.
Like, I would say like NFP hit 95% of what we wanted, while Richardson was at 115. Like, he went above and beyond what we needed.
Well,
To stuff that we didn't even.
no, we needed.
Yeah.
Yes, you know,
He
yeah.
was the overachiever and NFP was the straight A.
Yeah, I don't know that I would give them 95, but I think it's adequate. It's certainly far better than anything we could do. And I think that they're responsive enough that if we really hit a glitch, even if it were to cost us a little bit more, at least they're very experienced, very knowledgeable.
I think it would be early enough in the process where we can catch up.
I liked how they listed the different libraries that they've worked with in Indiana, so if you know that they've done this in the setting before.
Yeah, that was one area that they really hit, I think, better than everyone else, is the amount of libraries they've worked with. And the person that we would be working with directly is somebody who does libraries, like that is like.
One of the
like,
things
this
she
is-
does,
yes.
not her own.
Oh, okay, not
Yeah.
exclusively, but.
No, but if they get a library, she does that.
Yeah, she's their library go-to.
As opposed to one of the consultant groups we talked to kept referring to us as a nonprofit. And when I tried to explain we were local government, I really don't think could grasp what I was talking about. And kept wanting to say, oh, and we need to compare what you pay to nonprofit. I was like, that's really not true. I mean,
Right.
I tried to get her to understand, I tried different ways of saying it. I mean, I could not get that firm to understand we weren't a nonprofit, like, so there's a big difference in just that understanding, because if you run the numbers against the wrong kind of
Right.
entity.
Sure.
Not that we
Wrong-
don't
wrong
compete,
data.
I mean, we compete with non-libraries. But they need to understand,
NFP.
like NFP was like, well, yeah, it's like what the other local governments, you know, Richardson and NFP understood that.
Sure.
And Pontifex understood
Yeah,
that.
Pontifex did to a good extent.
And the fact that other libraries are seeking out this sort of level of expertise through consultants, I think does indicate that it is a specialty that we don't have internally that we
Yeah,
can benefit from.
The databases that they hit are ones I know of, but I do not have access to because they're actually quite expensive.
Okay.
So just that ability to get those databases is something that I wouldn't have with, and it, you know, you start adding that cost in and my time on top of it, it just ends up being. And somebody who specializes in this, like it was nice hearing them say, oh, well, we would compare you to other libraries compared, but also locally to your factories and to your, you know, the Aldis and the Targets, like they knew exactly what to do and where to hit, and that just timing alone time-wise alone makes a big difference.
Did either of you reach out to one or more of these other libraries to get an analysis of satisfaction?
Yes, I did. I asked, so before we ever reached out to consultants, I emailed 4 library directors in Indiana of medium-sized libraries who had one of these studies done within the past few years. And only one of them got back to me and said, sure, let's set up a phone call. But I talked to her extensively, and they have used NFP, but she has done it twice during her time there, and she's in Elkhart, and she's been at Elkhart a shorter amount of time than I have been here. And so she talked to me pretty extensively about the 2 companies they'd used, what they did, what we needed to do as a process. And they were happy with NFP. And because of the timing of this, I haven't called further. I could certainly call and, try to get a hold of some of the other places and see if I could, track down someone who would talk to me about it. I have not, other than they were very, willing to have us, talk to anybody who's worked with Abby, who is the person that does libraries when they get libraries. So I can certainly try to do that.
I've reached out to a couple of HR contacts that I have. I haven't heard back from one. I actually was getting ready to come in right before the meeting started until Dave. I heard back from somebody at Evansville who they've worked with fairly recently, and they liked NFP. They said they were very easy to get along with and responsive, was what I heard. And she said that was like a quick response, and she'd send me a further one, but I haven't gotten it. So.
And that's what Elkhart said too. Yeah. And they did say, it's kind of like that they would use this system of the databases. The system that used to be in favor was contacting a lot of libraries and places and having them send job descriptions and compare and all of that. And that is apparently it's being done less so because more of the information is available online. And they have ways, like even though our job titles might be slightly different, they somehow have.
It's like a keyword search and they pull it out and compare like.
They look at them and see if it's really comparable, and if it's not, then they look at some other things. So. I mean, and there are other kinds of ways that, like how they handle the job descriptions and how many job descriptions they look at and how they look at things that relate to each other. I mean, there are differences from firm to firm about that too.
I think NFP had a good response, as they will have some that they actually compare like apples to oranges, and then they have others that they call it slotting. So like if we have something that's really unique to us, or they can't find anything like it, they'll say, okay, well, we're gonna slot this in instead of comparing it, job description to job description. So a lot of what they said made a lot of sense to how they operate.
They also said things like, okay, if you have these people kind of in the same area, like I'll use finance. Like, okay, generally, if your finance people are these levels and they're doing kinds of these things, this is about the distance that always should exist. So we're going to take one of these and look at it extensively, and then we're going to look at roughly what should the spread be between these kinds of positions that are related. So there were some things like that they mentioned that other people didn't, and each conversation was a conversation too. So anyway. That's cool.
And we had 40,000 in the budget.
Motion to approve staff's recommendation to contract with NFP.
Second.
Any more discussion? Okay, Ginger, if you'll call for the vote.
Ms. Baker,
Aye.
Mr. Dunbar,
Nay.
Mr. Girton,
Aye.
Ms. Oden,
Aye.
Ms. Sosby.
Aye. Okay. Just to confirm, was it still passed because there's a majority? Okay,
Mhm.
all right, motion is approved. Okay. All right, and then, from what we had earlier, that was moved down, the 2025 salary resolution.
All right. So this was originally coming to you for, something we needed to add that should be included per state regulation. So that we were doing that to clarify that. However, we are in the process of moving to payroll software. And when Rita and Christy interviewed various firms, the answer from the one we picked about how many places numbers go to was not actually, as we discovered today, what occurs with it. So we need to be able to work within this software. We cannot have as many numbers after the decimal point as we have had, which is 5. So we need to go from 5 to 4. And if we just lop off that last digit, it will be shorting staff, even though it may be a few cents. Some staff won't get as much money by a very tiny amount. And so we don't want to pay staff, nor could we really just pay them less. However, if we pay them more without your permission, that's a problem too. So Rita went off and redid the paper, I think. Rita, I'm handing it over to you right now.
So the resolution, so our pay scale has 30 steps. And each step is based on 1.25% of the last step. So we can't just easily round the first one and round the last one because there are pennies as it goes along. So I went in and changed the first pay scale and I upped them all. I didn't round up or down. I upped them all to the next number. Then figured it all that way. So the new resolution gives a range. It's only pennies difference. The only one that it's weird, because I had to go back and check a second time, is level 5, only the last digit was a 0 to begin with, so it didn't change their thing, so they're gonna lose a 100,000th of a penny or something, I don't know. But the new resolution will show the beginning number and the highest step to 4 digits now instead of 5. They had assured us that they had 13 digits. And I told them today, I said, these are only showing up as 4 digits. And they said, they can only go to 4. I said, but you told me 13. This is a problem. I got to talk to my board. So it's not a huge amount of money for anybody for the year or, but for just on my payroll, just for the 2 holidays and what I'd worked so far today, it was going to be 4 cents less, which isn't end of the world. But if we're going by what a policy is, we can't pay somebody less than what we say we're paying them, or that would be a really bad issue.
That's bad, yeah.
So now the resolution is correct. And what we had to add, we found out in the State Board of Accounts meeting, we give that little holiday stipend every year. It was not in the resolution, and they came out and said, oh yes, holiday stipends have to be mentioned. So I put it in there that's mentioned, and we reference it back to the personnel manual and the section and all that sort of thing. So that was the only change we originally were coming to, with the holiday or the holiday stipend wasn't mentioned, and we found out, well, okay, November.
Mhm.
After the last,
Yeah.
the meeting towards the end of November or whatever. So this is a resolution that you'd already passed previously. Now we're adding the stipend, and I'm changing the things to 4 digits, and it's changing the amount of the rates of pay slightly, a few cents.
Isn't anybody getting less? Even if it's a couple of cents?
The only person that will be getting less is a level 5. And if they're on step 30, they were getting 33.21621. And now they're getting 33.2162. Because their beginning was a 0 to begin with in that digit, so it didn't change their beginning. And when you round to 4 digits, 30 steps out. Because that's what I went back. I thought I had made a mistake, so I went back real quick to check it again. And it's like, no, they've started at a 0. So when I round the rest of them to 4 digits all the way through the scale.
Do we have any employees at level 5, step 30? Do you know?
I know we have 2 people at 30. I think they're step fours, or a 4 and a 3. I mean, excuse me, level 3 and 4.
Yeah,
So I don't think we have anybody on that.
So you don't have anybody that would impact.
There may not
right
be
now.
any actual people impacted by that.
Yeah.
currently.
Have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the amendment to the resolution, correct?
The amended resolution.
Move to approve.
Second,
Any discussion? Ginger, can you call for the vote?
Ms. Baker,
aye.
Mr. Dunbar,
Aye.
Mr. Gerton,
Aye.
Ms. Oden,
Aye.
Ms. Sosby,
Okay. Other new business. Straightforward. Just so I make sure I'm understanding correctly, we will propose new slate of officers in January. Is that correct? And then we will.
You'll vote
We
on
will
that
pass
and
it
then you'll
along.
move. Like municipal chair.
Yep, all right, we have that ready for January then. Okay, director's comments.
All right, I brought you this lovely handwritten note to share with you. Dear Ms. Brodigan, this is written to express my appreciation of what a great job the library is doing with programming and publicity. The quarterly book is so appreciated and I look forward to participating and seeing what's available each time I get one. I'm especially appreciative of the Saturday craft activity on Saturdays at the South Branch under the direction of Susan Bednars. She always seems to go above and beyond to offer fun and creative activities. Susan is extremely organized and has everything prepared and directions are clear cut to make sure everyone is successful. It truly is something I really look forward to doing each and every time. Thanks again to you and your staff for doing such a great job. Sincerely, Karen Faust. So I thought it would be fun to share with you a happy note. And then I am not sure yet what dates I will be out of state for the family funeral that I emailed you about, but I would guess the end of this week. And I will be mostly out of the office starting on Wednesday, but if you have anybody, any little in your life who would enjoy going over to the stadium and doing something with library people, we're there on Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 2 to 4. And on the 22nd, if I'm in town, Doug and I will be there. If not, Doug and somebody will be there. So
Is this ice skating?
no, it's the same area. There's a tent
Oh, okay.
with,
Bridges still does the ice skating rink, and then the city has set up little areas in the promenade
Yeah,
for
okay.
different vendors and organizations.
it's called the Wintertime Village, so come see us.
Okay.
We need littles to come visit us, so if you know anybody with kids. I mean, some of it is probably workable for adults too. I mean, some of it is fun for adults or information for adults, but some of it is definitely kid oriented too, so. And that is it, unless you have any other questions for me.
Please, all right, the meeting is adjourned.